The importance of visual literacy. My presentation explores 6 published articles describing visual literacy and its importance in the classroom curriculum. The articles identify impact of visual literacy on today's student learning in our technology age. McLester offers suggestions on how visual literacy can be included into any curriculum and shares tools to help educators achieve this. Frostshire describes the importance visual literacy has in education within strategies for educators. Jake states the Partnership for 21st Century Skills has identified visual literacy as an essential literacy and that schools need to focus on helping students acquire these necessary skills. This presentation examines what it is, what a visually literate person can do, the standards which include the visual literacy from the AASL, and ways curriculum use visual literacy and technology tools to provide optimal student learning within a positive collaborative learning environment. A lack of visual literacy is as much a handicap as the inability to read or write. This is a quote by Linnell Burmark, author of the book Visual Literacy, Learn to See, See to Learn. What is it? Visual literacy is defined as a set of abilities that enables an individual to effectively find, interpret, evaluate, use, and create images and visual media. How do they equip a learner? To understand and analyze the contextual, cultural, ethical, aesthetical, intellectual, and technical components involved in the production and use of visual materials. A visually literate individual is both a critical consumer of visual media and a component contributor to a body of shared knowledge and culture. This is from the ACRL Visual Literacy Competency Standards for Higher Education of 2011. What this means. We can communicate with the use of visuals just as easily as written text. Using images, graphs, etc. is another form of conveying information. For example, look at a very young reader. They understand the plot of the story by reading the pictures. A math student uses a graph demonstrating linear equations or setting the dependent variable, and emotions conveyed in Van Gogh's Starry Night after an art student studies the painting. What can a visually literate person do? They can determine the nature and extent of the visual materials needed. Know the purpose of your image. For example, a flowchart saves the author a lot of writing, and you can click there for more information on using visual aids and reports. A visual literate person can find and access needed images and visual media effectively and efficiently. Access effectively and know the rights and uses for images. A visually literate person can interpret and analyze the meanings of images and visual media. For example, describe social, historical, and cultural relevance. Look at the Holocaust in human behavior photo. How does it portray a Jew? Why would the Nazis want Germans to see Jews in this way? And how do political cartoons make use of ideas of we and they? A visually literate person can evaluate images and their sources. What emotion here is the artist trying to convey in Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa? This oil painting is in the Louvre in Paris, and it remains an object of pilgrimage in the 21st century. A visually literate person can use images and visual media effectively. Can you read these images? There are no words, but were you able to understand and or interpret their meaning? A visually literate person can design and create meaningful images and visual media. Use a variety of tools to help create production. You can find many tools to help create visual content just by doing a Google search. Attached is a link for 13 easy-to-use tools for creating killer visual content. A visually literate person can understand many of the ethical, legal, social, and economic issues surrounding the creation and use of images and visual media and access, and use visual materials ethically. Know when to cite them and know when to attribute images. How can teachers help students to become visually literate? Incorporating visuals into lessons, such as photos, fonts, graphs, and color, can accelerate and enhance instruction within the classroom. Helping students to read, write, and understand how to interpret these items will allow them to become visually literate. Why should we incorporate visual literacy into our curriculum? How does it pertain to teaching standards, the 21st century skills, and what is the importance of it all? Visual literacy is a learned skill like learning how to read. It is not an intuitive one. This can be achieved by learning and understanding the techniques used to create images and identifying characteristics that give an image in its meaning. Students are using social media such as Facebook and Twitter, YouTube videos and Flickr, posting photos to Instagram, PicU, IM. But do they really have the skills to navigate, evaluate, and communicate with or using visual information? The Partnership for 21st Century Skills identifies visual literacy as essential. Successful visual literacy instruction should promote an understanding of intellectual property and copyright. They should take advantage of Creative Commons licensing. This is important to what it means to be visually literate. Visual literacy skills are as demanding as the skills required to decode and interpret print materials. We are in a technology age, and it is an indispensable ability as more than half the population are considered visual learners. Did you know the brain processes visual information 60,000 times faster than text? 90% of that information comes to the brain is visual. Visual aids in the classroom improve learning by up to 400%. And students who are twice exceptional are often visual learners. This is from the Visual Teaching Alliance. A picture is worth 1,000 words. We've heard this numerous times. Explaining an image seems like a simple task for assessment. However, students are having a difficult time making connections between text and images. Just as we teach students to read, we must also teach them how to be visually literate. After all, words cannot explain the whole picture as effectively as an image. This is a quote by Linda Forscher. Visual literacy included in the crosswalk of the Common Core standards and the standards for the 21st century learner. Just a warning, I listed all of the standards that contain information on visual literacy. I will not go into detail on them, but I will show you. Read, view, and listen for information presented in any format in order to make gathering meaning and inferences. Make sense of information gathered from diverse sources by identifying misconcepts, main and supporting ideas, conflicting information, and point of view or bias. Display initiative and engagement by posing questions and investigating the answers beyond the collection of superficial facts. Demonstrate confidence and self-direction by making independent choices in the selection of resources and information. Demonstrate creativity by using multiple resources and formats. Maintain a critical stance by questioning the validity and accuracy of all information. Seek divergent perspectives during information gathering and assessment. Use information technology responsibly. Use the writing process, media and visual literacy, and technology skills to create products that express new understandings. Respond to literature and creative expressions of ideas in various formats and genres. Recognize that resources are created for a variety of purposes. Visual literacy is important because it is a visual world. It builds on children's home experiences. Classroom technology allows for a huge range of visuals. It is an excellent teaching method for visual and kinesthetic learners. It supports English as another language learners. It is effective for developing writing, and it deepens understanding of text. How can visual literacy be used in student learning? For example, in math, students use graphs. In health, in history and social studies, in science, in English, even in art and specials such as electives. Studies show that people remember 10% of what they hear, 20% of what they read, and 80% of what they see and do. In order for students to provide optimal learning, how can a teacher establish this type of collaborative learning environment? A teacher can create a visual classroom to provide this learning by using some of the following technology visual tools. In conclusion, when a teacher establishes a learning environment using visual literacy, along with oral and written literacies, students will begin to provide optimal learning in a cooperative learning environment. What we have learned: the importance of visual literacy, how a visually literate person can incorporate these things into their daily lives by knowing what it is and what they can do, the standards that include visual literacy, and by providing optimal student learning for using visual literacy.